The Bible. Is it hard to understand?
When it comes to reading the Bible, the first thing that comes to mind is the fact that this is the Word of God.
The seals have been broken, and the truth is here.
And when we go throughout the scriptures, when we go throughout extra biblical records, we find that the language that God employed, that He used to create the heavens and the earth, was
The
the Hebrew
seals have
language.
been broken. Christ said, I came for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But yet no one, no religious leader, no religious church out there anywhere can now identify the 12 tribes of Israel. Can we? God is quite simple, but it seems as if man makes understanding him hard.
What are those mysteries?
Can now identify the truth of your book. God is quite simple, and the truth will make you understand. Hebrew Bible Academy. You're invited. The truth of your book. God is quite simple, and the truth will make you understand. Hebrew Bible Academy. You're invited. The truth of your book. God is quite simple, and the truth will make you understand. Hebrew Bible Academy. You're
All right, so Lawya. All right, let me make sure all is well before we get started. With the audio as well as the video, I want to make sure all is good before we get into this discussion. All right, I'm waiting for you all's confirmation. I want to make sure all is good before we get into this. We have a few announcements to make, obviously, pertaining to the Academy. All right, Shabbat Shalom. Okay, we got one confirmation that all is clear. Okay, so we're not dealing with any issues. So let's get right into it. First and foremost, I want to say thank the Most High for blessing us with another opportunity to come before you on this Sabbath. As you all can see, I'm filling in for Elder Rawchaa, who will, if it be the Most High's will, be back next week. But for all of you who are in the Hebrew and Bible Academy, you will see him tomorrow. Speaking of the Hebrew and Bible Academy, we all know that tomorrow is our last and final week, right? Tomorrow is our last and final week of this current installment of the Academy. However, we are accepting enrollments in the up and coming Academy. Let me adjust the sound. I want to make sure it's not too loud. All right. We are accepting enrollments in the up and coming Academy. Right? Now, someone says the sound is in and out. All right. Before we get into it, let me first make sure all is clear. All right. I got confirmation earlier, so hopefully nothing changed. Hopefully all is still good, but based on what I received earlier, all is well. So I'm going to work off of that until I hear otherwise. But yes, so soon. It seemed like this Academy it came as soon as it went, or it went as early as it came in. I mean, these 12 weeks are going by as quick as they come in. So it's very difficult sometimes to track what's going on from Academy to Academy, because it all seems as if it's a blur. Everything is just happening so fast. But nonetheless, based on the fact that things are transpiring very quickly, as soon as this Academy is over, we will be jumping into another Academy, January the 7th. We are accepting enrollments. We have administration on standby who is ready to accept your enrollments and get you everything you need to be there with us on January the 7th. Okay. So if you're interested, please make sure that you enroll in the Hebrew and Bible Academy. As we've mentioned, we do have brand new lessons that are going to be included in this academy. One of those lessons, which this one is not so brand new. We have covered it in the past, but we're going to kind of update it and bring forth more nuance based on some of the things that have come out in this past year pertaining to what they call or used to call UFOs. Again, I think they updated the name to UAPs, which I believe stands for Unidentified Anomalous, or UAV, Lawya. Unidentified anomalous vehicles, right? Or something to that effect. Or unidentified anomalous phenomenon is what they call it. So they updated the name, but nonetheless, still the same concept, still the same idea. We're going to be going into whether or not this type of unidentified anomalous phenomenon can be found within the pages of the Bible. Right? Can some of the things that are documented in Scripture, as far as angelic activity? Okay, so as we move, all right, so I have to try to stick here, all right, to make sure everything is good. All right, Thawada, Elder Rawchaa, and Shabbat Shalom, Elder Rawchaa, Shabbat Shalom, Elder Dale, Shabbat Shalom to all the family who is currently viewing the live stream. But yes, can what we call UFOs can that be found in the Bible? Can some of the activity that the Bible identifies as angelic activity, if people were to see those happenings today, would they refer to those phenomenons or those happenings as UFOs? Okay, unidentified flying objects or unidentified anomalous phenomenon, whichever one you choose. We're going to discuss whether that can be found in the Bible. Now, this lesson is a brand new lesson. The next one we're going to announce, which is the Jewish relationship with the tribe of Judah. Now, with this lesson, we wanted to do something a little different as far as our approach to this discussion. Obviously, when going into these types of topics, they can be a little controversial. And there may be, depending on who you ask or who's viewing, it may be some controversy involved in this discussion. Speaking about the Jewish relationship with the tribe of Judah, right? However, one thing we're going to, or one nuance that we're trying to incorporate with this lesson is not just focusing on what can be perceived as, or what some may call as negative. Okay? We're going to also focus on some positives pertaining to the relationship between the Jewish relationship between, or the Jewish relationship with the tribe of Judah. We're going to try to get into some positives as well as, instead of just kind of focusing on what some may perceive as negative, right? So that's going to be very interesting as we get into that topic. We already have it outlined as far as some of the points we want to touch, but there are more elements that we want to delve into to make it a little bit more nuanced and balanced, okay? But for those who are in the academy, you will see, based on how we get into this, how we approach it, you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. I'm keeping it under wraps for now. Again, obviously, some of the things may be considered controversial, but none of it is to be ill-natured or anything of that nature. Okay, Elder Rawchaa, at any point, if there's anything that needs to be adjusted, just continue to let me know, and I'll try to make adjustments. All right. All right. The next thing we have is the round table discussion on the purpose of man and woman. As Elder Rawchaa stated, within this lesson, we're going to try to make sure that, along with church members who would normally be involved in this roundtable discussion, we're also going to include some people on the outside of the church, okay, to kind of spruce up the conversation, get their perspectives from people who are not necessarily in a structured church setting or a structured church faith, to kind of give their um, unhindered. I don't want to say unhinged, but they're uninhibited perspectives on what they think is going on between men and women. Okay, volume going in and out. Okay, let me try to make this just a little better. All right, let me make sure this is good before we continue. One moment. All right, all looks well. All right, so let me just try to stay up on it as much as possible, as difficult as it is. If that doesn't work, I have to make an adjustment, but I think if I make that adjustment, in fact, let me try to make this adjustment very quickly. If this works, let me know. If not, then we'll switch back to this, okay? I know last time we had some issues with this particular microphone. Some people said it came through one side, but we made an adjustment on, I made an adjustment on this end to hopefully make sure that it comes through not as mono, but as stereo. So let me make this adjustment very quickly. Let me know if it works. If not, I'll come back to this setup and I'll just have to try to stay in this area. Let me try one thing. One moment. Okay. All right, let me do a check now to make sure that this is working fine. If so, this is better because Okay, let me make sure this is good before we get into it. Okay. How about now? Are we good now? Okay, it's mono. Okay, better. Okay, is this better? Okay, some people are saying no. Okay, mono. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll just go back to the other. I'll go back to the other setup if it's mono. Okay, if it's mono, I'll just go back to the other microphone. I just have to contain my movements, which will be very difficult, but nonetheless, it's not impossible. Okay, I'm getting mixed reviews. Some people are saying it's better. Some people are saying it's mono. Some people are saying it's low. It's too many mixed reviews, so I'll probably just go back to the former microphone. Okay, the other mic was better. Okay, so let me transition back. Okay, so this we're gonna try our best to work with this. Some people are saying they can hear fine, but I don't want a situation where it's coming through just one ear, which tends to happen with the other mic. Okay, so that's all right. That's fine. We'll just work with what we have here, and let's get into it. Again, we have a new Hebrew and Bible Academy coming up January 7th. Okay. Also, some of the other lessons we have are the breakdown on the 24 elders. We're going to go into how to identify them according to the Bible, as well as extra biblical records. We have the prophecies of Daniel and the secrets of times. Now, in this lesson, we're going to be focusing on not only Daniel 7. Usually we focus just on Daniel 7. We deal with Revelations, primarily other chapters in Revelation, Revelation 13, Revelation 17, so on and so forth. But this time, we're also going to incorporate Daniel 8, elements of Daniel 9, and then also we're going to delve into the secrets of the times. Okay? So we'll be dealing with that. Okay, we'll be dealing with that this academy. I'm still checking here to make sure everything is good as far as the sound. All right. Okay. Last but not least, we will be dealing with walking with the commandments in Christ. So, a lot of times coming into this truth, we have questions. How do we walk? How do we apply the commandments? Being under Christ, not being under the old covenant. What laws are still in play? What laws were done away with in Christ? Right? A lot of those questions we have that come up in the course of our walk when first coming into this truth. Well, we're going to try our best to answer those questions when we touch on walking with the commandments in Christ. So again, if you're interested in the Hebrew and Bible Academy, please go to historytimes.org, and that will give you all the information you need to participate in this up and coming academy. Okay? All is good? Okay, so let's get into it. All right? Let's get into it. All right. The topic of today's discussion. All right? The topic of discussion. Let me make sure I have this with me. So okay, there we go. The topic of today's discussion: exposing the architects of sin. Okay, again, the topic of discussion: exposing the architects of sin. Now, some of you may be asking, obviously, what does that mean? What do we mean by the architects, and what sin are we speaking of specifically? Well, we're going to delve into all of that during the course of this lesson. Now, many of you, when you chimed in earlier, you saw maybe another title, which initially I was going to go into, which again, I believe that as well is a very important topic for this time period, especially what's going on in the world around us. There's a lot of what people may deem as chaos and uncertainty, wars, rumors of wars, things going on globally, whether internationally or domestically. And obviously, many people would like to know, well, how can we operate and find some level of joy and comfort in the time of chaos or in the hour of temptation? Which, again, that's a very important topic, which I'll probably touch on in a future lesson. Right? But this topic in particular, and to some degree, I struggled with deciding to bring this forward because it is a very touchy, controversial topic. Right? It is a topic that is based upon a lot of the things that we've been hearing, not just within the past month or so. And I'll get into exactly what I'm talking about. These are things that we've been hearing for maybe the past 7 or 8 years. Okay? Rumors, in your windows, accusations, various stories and accounts of things that go on within an industry, which for the sake of this lesson, we're going to call that industry Little Babylon. And again, all of this is going to be cryptic initially, but you all will get the gist of what I'm talking about. You all know that in order to try to prevent any level of, strikes or anything that can hinder this page, I tend to go and deal with things a little bit cryptically, or to deal with things cryptically just to ensure that you all get the point, but nonetheless, we're able to progress this truth and push forward this information using this platform without any hindrance. Okay? But as always, you all will get the point. Well, in fact, I pray you all will get the point as we go through it, right? But before getting into it, I first want to make a disclaimer because, again, this is a very controversial topic. I know a lot of people may not necessarily agree with this perspective, okay, that I'm going to bring forward, okay? But I believe that in the grand scheme of things, with all that we've been hearing, really going back to about, I want to say 2015, 2016, maybe 2014, maybe earlier than that, okay? I'm just going off of recollection. I'm thinking maybe 2015, maybe 2016. Again, maybe earlier than that, we've been hearing rumblings within a certain industry, which again, for the topic of discussion, we're going to refer to as Little Babylon, right? But we've been hearing these accusations and these rumblings about what goes on in this industry as far as devious activities, debauchery, sin, weird, it's a lot of weird activity that has been accused or accusations have been made over these past few years. And really, for many of us, we've been hearing some of these stories, or not necessarily details, but we've been hearing little inklings since we were younger, long before the truth long before we understood the Bible and where we fit within the Bible and certain things that we know now, for years going back to when we may have even looked up to some of these individuals, or if not looked up to them, at least admired what they brought forth to the world of, let's say, entertainment, the world of music, the world of sports, the world of, movies and things of that nature, right? All of which is encompassed in this place that has a certain name. I'm not going to call out the name just for the sake of this lesson. Again, it's not evil. It's not wrong. I can say the name, but just for the sake of this lesson, I'm not going to say it. I'm just going to call it Little Babylon. But just know that Little Babylon is known for entertainment. Okay. It is the global hub of entertainment. When you think of entertainment on any level, again, whether it be movies, whether it be sports, whether it be music, the first thing you think about is Little Babylon. Okay? That's the first thing you think of. Right? Now, again, we've been hearing about certain things going back to our youth. Before we knew anything, when our heads were still in the ground, so to speak, we had no knowledge of self, had little to no knowledge of the Most High, our God, our Lord and Savior Christ. Before we knew any of those things, right? For many of us, some of us always had some level of understanding of the Most High, Christ, the Bible. Some of us were raised in that. But for those of us who weren't, even back then, we heard stories or we heard accusations. We heard little rumblings about things which took place within this particular industry. But within the past, maybe, again, I'm going to say 7, 8 years, it may have been longer, the accusations and the rumblings have gotten louder, okay, to the point where there have been convictions and there have been imprisonments and things of that nature based upon some of the rumblings and some of the things that have come out over the past few years pertaining to the activity that takes place within the quote unquote, the industry, right? Right. The Druid tree, the magic wand, right? You all get the point. Okay. All right. You guys are sharp as a thumbtack. You catch on very quickly, right? So we don't have to assume, or I don't have to assume that you all know what I'm speaking of. Okay. But the reason why I'm touching on this topic is because based upon those rumblings and some of the things that we've been hearing recently, okay? With some of the things we've been hearing recently, by recently, I mean in the recent months, recent weeks, recent years, you would think that some of the activity that we're hearing began with the individuals whose names are being run through the mill. Okay? Some would call it a rumor mill, right? Been no convictions as of yet. Some would say it's undeniable truth, right? That whatever is being accused has taken place exactly as it has been stated. I'm not here to I'm not dealing on any sides of those extremes. Okay? Whether you believe whatever has been accused has taken place, or if you don't believe, or at least you may think, well, it may not be to the extent of what you're hearing, I'm not dealing on any side of those spectrums. That's another conversation for another day. That probably is never going to take place on this platform because that's not necessarily what this platform is about. Okay? You got other channels, they like to deal with tea, and other channels that like to deal with Hollywood gossip. I said the word, but Little Babylon gossip, right? You have people who like to deal with that, right? This is not necessarily the place for that, okay? We deal with things from a biblical perspective, right? Now, again, regardless of where you stand on any side of the spectrum, right? The point we want to try to make today, okay, or the point that I'm making at least now, is the fact that the things that you're hearing, right, as far as accusations, you will believe that these activities started, began with, and will end with the individuals who are in question. Right? You would think that by certain levels of violation and abuse, what they would consider or call trafficking and things of that nature, things that are very heinous, and we don't downplay these things to any degree. These are very serious things we're talking about here, right? However, to push things to a point or to a level to get us or get people behind it to the point where they feel as though this type of activity began with and will end with the demise of the individuals in question, to believe that, you have to be out of your mind. Okay? Because the accusations that we have been hearing, the rumblings, the innuendos, the inklings, and all of those various things, this activity, not only has it been around since the inception of Little Babylon, the industry, okay? We're going to show you, according to the Bible, that these things have been around since the beginning of time. It's just that now you have a whole industry, right, which have taken all of the debauchery and all of the things, all of the devious things you can think of, and it have centralized it in one location to where this location, this place, this industry has become synonymous with certain devious activity. Okay? And again, they're making it seem as if it's just a few people here, one person there. This person is at the top of it all, or if we remove this person out the way, or if we get rid of this person, or if we convict this person, all of a sudden, the activities and the rumblings and all of the things that we kind of already understood were going on to some degree, it will make us believe that these things will now disappear. All right? Get this guy out the way, and that's it. Okay? No more violation, no more abuse of men, women, and children. Okay? No more moving around illegally of men, women, and children. Okay? All of that will end and stop. No more exploitation. Right? All of that will stop if we nab this individual, if we castigate this individual, if we convict this individual, this person, right? All of a sudden, all of our nightmares will go away. Okay? And that couldn't be any further from the truth, right? So, first and foremost, I have to make a disclaimer. The purpose of this lesson is not to be in defense of anyone who is involved in outright sin and debauchery. Okay? This is not to defend anyone who is involved in any level of sin and debauchery and is now paying for their acts of sin and debauchery. Okay? Starting off in the Bible, we're going to go to the book of Galatians, chapter 6, verse number 7. Okay? Galatians 6 and 7. All right, sound should be back now. The sound should be back now. Let me confirm before I continue. Okay, we should be good now. So, Lawya. Okay, we good? Okay, wonderful. All right, so again, Galatians 6 and 7 says the following. Be not deceived, God is not mocked. It just so happens within the so-called industry of entertainment within Little Babylon, many of your entertainers have said things, have made certain remarks, and have done things which are an affront to God. Okay? Have done things in mockery of God. Right? So it's only so long you can get away with that before the Most High steps in and allows judgment to come forth. Okay? So, as far as we're concerned, the Most High is not mocked. Whatsoever a man soweth, whatsoever you plant, meaning if you sow an apple seed or if you plant an apple seed into the ground, eventually you're going to get back an apple tree. Okay? If you sow or if you plant a lemon seed in the ground, eventually you're going to get back a lemon tree. So the same thing goes for your actions. If you sow hatred, if you sow discord, if you sow fornication and debauchery and adultery and murder in the earth, eventually you are going to get those things back. Okay? It's going to come back to you like a ton of bricks directly from on high. Okay? So no one gets away with anything, basically. Right? So from the start, we're letting you know that this is not in defense of anyone. Okay? No matter what your race is, no matter what your color is, no matter what your creed is, no matter what your ethnicity or nationality is, if you stand against God, okay, if you attempt to mock God, understand that you are going to reap what you have sown. Okay? So I want to get that out the way so that as we go through this lesson, no one can say that this is in defense of anything or anyone. Okay? We're not that invested in these people within Little Babylon, the industry. We're not that invested in them to defend them to that degree, right? However, there are some things that we have to address when we are talking about Little Babylon. Okay? There are some things we must discuss. So first and foremost, we're not in defense of. However, the purpose of this lesson is to expose the nature of what goes on in Little Babylon. And we'll touch on that a little bit later when we talk about the prophecy of obviously Babylon as a whole. But again, you have a place within the earth, right? An industry within the earth, which is basically a microcosm of everything that goes on in Great Babylon. Okay, hence, this is why we're calling this place or this industry Little Babylon, right? Okay, someone said the sound went off. All right, okay. I'm assuming that's just one person. All right. So let's get into it. Okay. So first and foremost, first things first, right? When we hear about the accusations and the rumors and the innuendos of what goes on within Little Babylon, usually we hear these things and we try to measure it through the lens of our value systems, right? Which, for the most part, is a good thing. Everything should be measured through our value Salakia system. We being believers understand that our value system is based upon the principles of the Bible. Okay? So, when we hear about accusations of people being violated, we hear accusations of alternative lifestyles being promoted and running roughshod within the industry, when we hear things happening to men and women, as well as children in the industry, we view it from the mindset of our value system, which is the Bible. Also, along with the Bible, we understand that there are societal norms, things that we all understand and agree based on, even within society, there's certain things that are deemed wrong, right? Again, abuse, violation, those things are wrong. We know that 100%. Drug use, illegal drug use, wrong. Okay? Violence against others, okay, for the sake of pleasure, wrong. Okay? Anything you can think of, right, that both biblically and as far as how things operate within society, we all understand that we have values. We have norms that allow us to measure everything that we come in contact with. Okay? So that's first things first, right? And being believers, being people who have faith in the Bible, whose foundation is built upon the Bible, when we hear about the rumors of what's going on in Little Babylon, and what's going on in this industry or in that industry with this entertainer, or let's take it out of the entertainment industry. Let's deal with what's going on with this politician, what's going on with that politician, this government official, so on and so forth. When we hear about these things that are taking place, right, which are total violations of our belief, it should make our skin crawl. Okay? It should make our skin crawl. We should feel disgusted when we hear these things, right? Very quickly, going to the Bible in the book of Ephesians 5 and 12. Okay? In fact, I'll start in verse number 11. Ephesians 5 and 11. Okay, some people are saying they don't have sound. I just need to make sure before I continue. Some people are saying they can't hear. Okay? Okay, sound is good. Okay, good. All right, so let's go to Ephesians 5 and 11. Right? This is for us who view things from our value system. Okay, from our standpoint. Biblically, even for those who don't necessarily believe in the Bible, we know that societally, there's things that are deemed wrong, even within society. Murder, violation, abuse, okay, drug use, and all these various things that we may hear about. We know that these things are wrong, right? And when we hear about, again, some of the things that are taking place in certain industries, obviously, we should feel disgusted. Okay? Why so? Well, the Bible says what? Ephesians 5 and 11. And have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them, which is what we do the majority of times. When we hear about the unfruitful works of darkness that are taking place in certain high places, whether it be entertainment, whether it be politics, or what have you, when we hear about these things, these unfruitful works of darkness, not only do we abstain from them, we reprove them. We rebuke them. Right? It goes on to say, for it is a shame even to speak of those things which are done of them in secret. Okay? Again, it is a shame even to speak of those things which are done of them, meaning the perpetrators, the suspects, which just so happen to be usual suspects, meaning the same names have come up over and over throughout the years, being involved in certain activity, right? So the things that they do in secret, the Bible says it is even a shame to speak of those things. And many of you have heard, again, throughout the years, you've heard the accusations and you've heard the rumors of what people have done. And it is a shame to speak of those things. Okay? You can take a moment and reflect on some of the accusations, again, that you've heard coming from the industry and just ask yourself, do you even feel comfortable having a conversation about some of the things that these people have been accused of doing? Okay? Is that vile? Right? The book of 1 Peter's, the second chapter. In fact, I believe we're in 2 Peter, the second chapter. One moment, let me get this together so that we're not all over the place. It's just one thing I need to make sure is here in front of me. Just one moment. One moment. All right, I think I'm losing my place here. So let me make sure I have what I need here right in front of me so I'm not losing my place. Okay, there we go. All right, let me get rid of this. All right, let me get rid of this. All right, there we go. Okay, perfect. All right. So let's go to 2 Peter chapter 2, verse number 4. 2 Peter 2 and 4. Okay. Again, coming from the vantage point of a believer, coming from the vantage point of people who are in the faith, when we hear about these things, obviously, we get disgusted. We say, how can these things take place? How can these things happen? How could this person who we may have admired their music, may have liked the way they, the artist that may have been associated with this person, or we may have liked how this person or that person acted within a movie, or he may have liked how this person dunked the basketball, or whatever the case may be. And when we hear these things, we ask ourselves, how could this person be so vile? How could this person do something so disgusting? These are the things that come to mind, the first thoughts. For some of us, many of us, most of us, if not all of us, the words that come out of our mouth when we're examining these things, I believe that covers the majority of our sentiments. How could people who are in an industry, who are seen by some to be either heroes, people admire them, but whatever the case may be, how can they be involved in such gross activity? Right? So now going to the book of 2 Peter 2 and 4. For if God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell and delivered them into the chains of darkness to be reserved unto judgment, and spared not the old world, but saved Noah, the eighth person, a preacher of righteousness, bringing in the flood upon the world of the ungodly, and turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes, condemned them with an overthrow, making them an ensample, meaning an example, unto those that live, or that after should live ungodly. So yes, we have examples in the Bible of societies who operated against the will of God, right? Acting out in sin and debauchery. And we have the example of what happens to those societies when the Most High steps in. Okay? With the example of Sodom and Gomorrah, we know that the Most High did what? He rained fire and brimstone upon that nation, making them an example to future generations who may decide that they want to turn into the same, or turn their society on the same course as was Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay? They serve as an example of what not to do within a society. Right? Verse number 7 says, and delivered just Lot, vexed with the filthy conversation of the wicked. So when Lot was hearing the conversations of what took place in Sodom and Gomorrah, he was vexed. He felt violated. Okay? How could people operate so vile within a city or a society? How could this be possible? Okay? Lot was vexed with simply hearing about the things that were taking place in Sodom and Gomorrah. And that's how we should feel when we hear about things and how they operate, or the vile things that take place within Little Babylon. That's the same exact reaction that we have when hearing the stories and the rumors, so on and so forth. Verse 8 says, for that righteous man dwelling among them, and seeing and hearing, vexed his righteous soul from day to day with their unlawful deeds. Okay? So yes, the righteous are vexed when they hear the conversation of the wicked, when they hear about what's going on and the actions that are taking place among the wicked, amongst the circles of the wicked and the unrighteous and the vile and so on and so forth. The righteous are vexed when they hear these things. And you should be. Okay? However, okay? When we're examining what goes on within the realm of Little Babylon, within the entertainment industry, okay? When you hear the stories that are coming out of there, as vile as they are, as horrific as they are, okay? When examining Little Babylon, you have to examine it. I'm trying to take this slowly as possible, all right, so that you understand exactly where we're going with this, okay? But when you hear what's coming out of Little Babylon, to some degree, okay, You have to eliminate your value system. When I say eliminate, not put your value system away. When examining Little Babylon, you have to understand that this is a world within itself that does not operate according to your value system. It does not operate according to societal norms. Right? You have to see Little Babylon for what it is, right? Opposed to what you believe it should be. Meaning this, we being biblical people, dealing with a biblical foundation, we believe that Little Babylon, the industry, should operate according to that value system. And to some degree, it should. But the reality is, it doesn't. When examining Little Babylon and the stories that come out of it, you have to deal with things as they are. Okay? Deal with it realistically, not according to what you think it should be, how you feel it should be, but how it is. Okay? And when we get into the reality of what actually goes on and how it actually is, these are the realities that we come to. Starting off with the book of Job, chapter 9, verse number 24. Job 9:24. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. Okay? The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. Okay? Basic biblical one-on-one. We understand, regardless of what we feel and how we feel, things should be run, right, within Little Babylon and the world at large. We understand that the reality of it is that the earth is in the hands of the wicked. The earth is not in the hands of the saints. The earth is not in the hands of the righteous. The earth is not in the hands of the apostles. The earth is not in the hands of the prophets. The earth is not in the hands of the Most High's priest. The earth is in the hands of the wicked. So understanding that, we have to see things from the viewpoint of what they actually are. Okay, moving on. Okay. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse number 49. Deuteronomy 28 and 49. This is the reality of what we are under. Deuteronomy 28 and 49. Okay. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far. So the Most High is going to bring a nation against thee, the thee being the children of Israel, from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth. Now we know this is speaking of, prophetically, Esau, right? Esau or Edom being sent against the children of Israel, right? So now let's see what the Bible says about the people who would be sent against the children of Israel. Let's see the characteristics of these people. A nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand, a nation of fierce countenance. Okay? Not of a friendly countenance, but of a fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, meaning they will not have any level of care or respect of the person of the old, the elderly, nor show favor to the young, neither will they have care for the young. Right? They would go as far to the extent of not only abusing and exploiting the old or the elderly, they will also go to the extent of exploiting and abusing the young. Okay? Why? Because this particular people that the Most High is sending against the children of Israel, amongst these people, nothing is sacred. That's the reality of what we are in and who we are under. Right? It just so happens that these are the people who are not only over the world at large, the rulers of the world at large, they just so happen to also be over Little Babylon. Okay? So if you have people with these characteristics over Little Babylon, what type of activity do you expect to be operating within Little Babylon? Don't expect the activity of the prophets to be taking place in Little Babylon. Don't expect the activity of the apostles to be taking place within Little Babylon. Don't expect the activity of the priest of the Most High to be operating and flourishing within Little Babylon. You can expect the activity of a fierce people with a fierce countenance who has no regard for the elderly, neither do they have any care for the young. Okay? Moving on, we go to the book of Baruch and the Apocrypha. Okay, the KJV Apocrypha. Baruch 4 and 14. Okay? Baruch 4 and 14. Right, someone said promiscuous activity. We're going to get to all of that. Because again, we can sit all of we want and say to ourselves, why are things this way? Why shouldn't things should be this way opposed to that way? Well, the reality is that this is how things are within really the world at large, but especially within this realm that, again, we're referring to as Little Babylon. Okay? You can only imagine what type of activity you can expect to permeate from such an environment. Okay? Baruch 4 and 14 says, "Let them that dwell about Zion come, and remember ye the captivity of my sons and daughters." This is again speaking of what? The children of the Most High, the nation of Israel, which the everlasting have brought upon them. Verse 15. "For he hath brought a nation upon them from far," exactly as it says in Deuteronomy 28, "a shameless nation." So Baruch refers to this people as a shameless nation. So if this shameless nation is over the realm of not only the world at large, but also Little Babylon, what type of activity do you expect to see within Little Babylon? You can only expect to see shameless activity. You can only expect to hear about shameless activity. Okay? Now, this shameless activity has been going on within that realm, whether it's movies, whether it's music, whether it's sports, long before these present accusations. Okay? Some would probably go as far as to say that some of the people who have been run through the mill as of late, okay, were introduced to some of this shameless activity. Not to say that it doesn't exist within the world at large, because we're going to touch on that as well. Okay? How we hear some of these things and everybody gets on the moral high ground or the moral high horse as if they've never either heard of these things before, And to some degree, we're going to show you, according to the Bible, that there's many people who have now repented, have been baptized, are walking in the light, but in past times themselves, to some degree, may not be to the degree of what you see in Little Babylon, because everything there is escalated to the umpteenth degree. Okay, everything is done to the extreme, and the Bible speaks to that as well. We're going to touch on that according to the Bible as well. But the reality is that to some degree, some of the things you hearing coming out of there are not exclusive to there. Okay? You're going to find out that there's people who are walking in Christ now and are ashamed of what they used to deal with as far as activity in the world, but to some degree, we're dealing with certain activities that you're now hearing about within the realm of Little Babylon. Again, maybe not to that degree, but to some degree. Okay? So getting back to the point, con means yes or agree. All right? So a shameless nation of a strange language who neither reverenced old man, again, they have no respect for old men, and check this out, nor pitied children. Neither do they have pity upon children. So if these people decide to create an industry having these characteristics, what do you expect to come out of that industry? What do you expect to hear as far as what's going on after the set is over, or on the set, or in the recording studio, after the recording studio, during the award show, after the award show? What type of activity do you expect to hear, or what type of accusations do you expect to hear about the activities that are going on within this industry? Okay? You'd be a fool to expect to see what? The activity of the prophets, the Spirit of Christ operating, the Spirit of the apostles operating, the Spirit of the prophets operating. Why? Because the apostles and the prophets are not over this industry. It's shameless people doing shameless things. Okay? So the point I was making earlier is that I know we want to, people want to believe that if you nab, let's call him the latest bad boy, right? You nab the bad boy and all the bad activity will go away. All the shamelessness will go away. All the lack of pity for children will go away. All of the reverence, or the lack of reverence and respect for the elderly, will go away when you nab the bad boy. But again, as I was mentioning earlier, not only was this stuff in play before the most recent bad boy, okay? Right, don't speak negatively about family in the chat. Don't put their, again, when we make certain statements about certain things, again, it's for personal reflection, but we don't expect anyone to put their families out there. I don't know exactly what the quote is, but I can only assume that it's in relation to something that was probably said earlier. But always have respect for your family in the chat. Okay? Ezra Allen, you'll catch on. Trust me, you'll catch on. All right? You'll catch on as we keep going. I'm trying to refrain from saying certain terms. Okay? You have Great Babylon, which is the world at large. And you have Little Babylon, which is specifically a specific industry within Great Babylon, or Babylon the Great, that is known for entertainment, whether it be movies, music, sports, so on and so forth. Okay? So that's what when we say Little Babylon, we're not talking about Babylon the Great, which we know is, okay, or identified today prophetically as America. We're talking about a little industry within America that is, again, known for entertainment. Now, you got to put the pieces together. I'm trying to be as cryptic as possible, right? But you'll get it as we go into this. Okay. So again, you'll think that the point I was making is that not only is the latest bad boy, not only did this activity exist before him, some would even argue that a lot of these things, not all of it, there were probably things going on before he was introduced into the industry, but there's levels of things that he probably could have never imagined to be a part of, or certain activities to partake in, if he wasn't introduced to the industry, which we're calling Little Babylon. You can put the pieces together, okay, for those who are listening. Okay? Again, no excuses for anyone. Okay? But again, when we're doing our analysis and we're hearing these things, sometimes we have to say, okay, I hear the accusations. They are gross. They are vile. They are disturbing. Okay? It's, to even fathom these things, it puts a dark spirit or a dark energy in our minds and hearts just to even fathom some of the things that we're hearing about. But the reality is, if you examine the industry at large and understand some of the things we're going to get into today, you'll understand that, again, not to downplay anything, but some of the things you're hearing is child's play. Okay? Again, not downplaying anything, but it's child's play in comparison to some of the things that we have heard, that have been reported, accusations that have been made that are going on within this particular industry. And what you're hearing as far as the latest bad boy is just the tip of the iceberg. Okay, and I'm talking about just a little drop of water, a little drop of water at the tip of the iceberg is what this is. Now, it has the potential to get deeper because of the, what would you say, the original prestige that this individual once had. If he were to now get into the depths of what's going on, it has the potential to go a little bit more up the ladder, but I doubt that would take place. If it does, I wouldn't be surprised, but I doubt that would take place. Okay, but understand that he's just he's not even an icicle on. Okay. So now going to the book of Titus 1:15. Okay, Titus 1:15. Okay, Titus 1:15 says, "Unto the pure, all things are pure." Okay, so again, we think from a pure mindset when we hear these things. We're thinking, my God, this is crazy. This is insane. How can a person do such a thing? But in that realm, people are looking and saying, well, that's as crazy and as heinous as it is, that's nothing. I mean, the stuff that he's been accused of, we do that at least twice a week. I mean, that's not a big deal. Okay? That's nothing compared to some of the things that have come out of Luke 16:8, and then we're going to jump into it a little deeper. Okay? Luke chapter 16, verse number 8. "And the Lord commended the unjust steward." In fact, I'll read up here. I'll start at the top because this is a very good example of the, someone says, very true and offended. Okay. Okay. Right. So moving on, it says here, this is the parable of the unjust steward. Now, this is a perfect example of the difference between the children of the world and the children of light. The children of light see things from the perspective of everything must be done by the book. Okay? Everything must be done upright. Everything must be done by the book. Everything must be done according as thus saith the Lord. And you know what? That is 100% correct. But the children of the world don't operate on that same vibration. Okay? They don't operate according to that understanding. People of the world are willing to color outside the lines, are willing to get their hands dirty. Okay? Are willing to go outside the book in order to get things done. And that's the mindset of the children of the world. Right? So it says here, verse 8, and the Lord commended the unjust steward because he had done wisely. For the children of this world are in their generation wiser than the children of light. Why? Because again, the children of the world are willing to go to the extreme, or they're willing to operate outside of guidelines in order to get things done, whereas the children of light will do things according to the book. Will not stray from it to the left hand, to the right. You're going to try to do things, right, according as it is said, thus saith the Lord. And again, that should be our mindset, but we have to understand that that is not the mindset of the world, and that is not the mindset of the industry. Okay? They don't think on that level. Okay? So again, when we hear these things, we have to understand that this is their mindset is not our mindset. Okay? What is wrong for us, there is no wrong for them. What we would say no to, for them, there is no such thing as no. Okay? It's a totally different world. Right? And I wish I had this years ago. This is when another individual who they told us that if we got this guy's a monster. And again, not to defend anyone, but we're going to call this guy the Pied Piper, right? There was a big media thing going on dealing with the Pied Piper. We need to cancel the Pied Piper. We need to get rid of the Pied Piper. He needs to be in prison. And it was to the point where it was like, by doing so, you would eliminate, again, similar to this current situation, if you get him out the way, you're going to eliminate the exploitation of women and young girls by getting this guy out the way. Okay? And it was during that time period, again, not to excuse anything or defend anything, because again, that's not the purpose of this. But during that time period, I came across a documentary. And this documentary was titled, I know it wasn't subtle, but I got to try to be as cryptic as possible without saying names. Okay? Not Weinstein. Far from Weinstein. Okay, the Pied Piper. You all put the pieces together. Okay? But, okay, they had a thing called surviving. Here's a clue. You're surviving the Pied Piper. Okay? Again, put the pieces together. So they had this whole thing, the whole campaign, okay, whatever the case may be, right? At the same time, there was a documentary. Now, this documentary came out years before that took place, okay? Years before this documentary and all the media thing, before all of that came out, there was a documentary done by E! Hollywood. And you all know, growing up, E! Hollywood, I believe it was either E! Hollywood or VH1, or both of them had some type of thing where it was like, it used to be called Behind the Music. You all correct me. Back in the day, growing up in the 90s, cable television, they had something called Behind the Music. It was either VH1 or E! Hollywood, right? But basically what they would do is they would do exposés, okay? You would have certain entertainers, musicians, actors, and so on and so forth. And what they would do is, after their career was kind of on the decline, or they were no longer, I guess you would say, either a box office sensation or a mega recording star, okay, or a superstar within the music industry, they would kind of do like an expose documentary called Behind the Music. Again, I don't remember whether it was E! Hollywood or VH1, Okay, VH1 did Behind the Music. Okay, VH1 did Behind the Music. E Hollywood, they had their own version, but it was more so geared towards actors in Hollywood, if I remember correctly. Okay. Now they had one, and this was on YouTube. I can't find it. I can't remember the exact name. I thought it was called E Hollywood, Hollywood Exposed. Okay, where they did an expose on Hollywood itself. Instead of just focusing on one actor, one actress, one musician, or what have you, they did an expose on Hollywood itself and the environment of Hollywood. And basically, at the same time, they had the whole stories and the documentaries and all those things and the trial geared towards the Pied Piper. There's a documentary on YouTube from, again, years prior, going into the environment of Hollywood. And basically how, within the environment of Hollywood, there is no such thing as no. Meaning what? Okay, someone says I'm breaking up. There was no such thing as no. Meaning what? Anything an entertainer wanted, anything an entertainer desired, there was a venue, an avenue. There was something there that allowed that entertainer, whether it be a musician or actor, whatever the case may be, that allowed them to indulge in whatever they desired. Okay? Someone says YouTube scrubbed a lot of stuff. I'm going to try to look for it again because I actually wanted to do something using that documentary and paralleling to some of the things that we're not only we're hearing back then, but we're hearing now, to show that on one end they'll castigate and tell you that this person is the devil, which in many cases they are the devil for the activities that they're involved in. However, on the other end, they'll tell you that, listen, within Hollywood, it is a different world within itself. And there's nothing off limits to your A-listers, B-listers, maybe even C-listers. If they want it, we got it. And if we don't got it, we can get it. Okay? And that's essentially what the documentary was about. Okay? Whether it was women, illustrious, luxurious parties, illegal drugs, okay? Anything they wanted, they were able to get. And they actually went to the various places within Hollywood that provided some of these things. Like, this is the place where certain people like to come and party. And when they come and they ask and they say they want this, we make sure they have it. Okay? So on one hand, they're telling us that this is what goes on within this realm. And then on the other hand, they're telling us, now that the stories are out there, that the person who was only fulfilling the desires of their flesh according to what they had access to, okay? And not only did they have access to it, there were people there to ensure that what they wanted, they could get at the snap of a finger. They'll tell us once the story is out that this person is a devil. This person is, they're, what's it? The lone wolf, right? It starts and ends with this person. This person is doing this, that, and the third. And if we get him, if we get her, we'll blow the whole cover. The whole thing is now, no longer do you have to worry about any of these accusations or any of these actions taking place once we get this person. While in the documentary telling us that pretty much anything you want, you can get. This whole industry's built or operating within Hollywood that makes sure that you get exactly what you want. This is how our business within Hollywood thrives. If we can't get the celebs what they want, the celebs are not going to come here. We're not going to do good with business. So we got to make sure they get what they want. Okay? So I'm bringing that up. Again, I wish I had I wouldn't have played the documentary. I probably would have just gave you the link so you can watch it on your own time. However, I wanted to give that as an example to show how, again, we being the children of light, we being the pure, seeing all things pure, we hear these stories and we view it from the standpoint of our value system and what is normal for us within society. But what's normal for us is not normal for them. Okay? What we would get arrested for and sent up the river for, there's whole industries and whole businesses that cater to ensure that these people within Little Babylon get exactly what you would be arrested for. Okay? This is what we're talking about. So when we hear these things, we clutch the pearls, we do the Fred Sanford, and we get into a whole mode of how could this be taking place? But after a while, you got to start to scratch your head and ask yourself and say, well, isn't this what goes on within this place? Isn't this what is, whatever goes on here stays here? Isn't it that type of environment that is promoted within here? And if you go there, you kind of know exactly what you're getting yourself into. Not saying that anything should happen to anyone, I don't agree with anyone being violated or whatever the case may be. But there's enough information out there and has been for a long time to know that when you get into this realm, it's a whole different ball game. Okay? So, now, here's where the hypocrisy comes in. We're almost done. We're not going to take too long. Again, I apologize for the late start, but let's deal with the hypocritical aspect of this. Okay, let's deal with the hypocrisy of it all. Okay, Isaiah chapter 10, verse number 5. It says here, O Assyrian, the rod of mine anger. So this is the Most High calling forth the Assyrians as the rod of his anger, meaning he's using the Assyrians to judge his people, the Israelites, and the staff in their hand is mine indignation, meaning he's using the military might, or he's raising up the Assyrians and using their military might to now execute his judgment in the earth. And the Most High does this time and time again. He did it with Nebuchadnezzar. He did it with Alexander the Great. He did it with Julius Caesar, okay, and many others throughout history. He is willing to use Gentiles as a means of getting his point across, basically. Okay, he will use the Gentiles, he will raise them up, give them power, and use them to put the earth in subjection, and ultimately to chastise and punish his people Israel. Okay, in this case, he's doing it with the Assyrian. Okay, so he says here, I will send him against an hypocritical nation. So he's raising up the Assyrian, using him as the rod of his anger against a hypocritical nation. Now, the question is, who is the hypocritical nation that the Most High is speaking of? He's speaking of the nation of Israel. Okay? Again, I will send him against an hypocritical nation. Why? Because historically, Israel has been full of hypocrisy. Okay? It was the case in ancient times, and it's the case in recent times. I'm going to go into why. And against the people of my wrath will I give charge to take the spoil and to take the prey and to tread them down like the mire of the street. So here's the hypocritical part. Again, not to make any excuses for anyone. Again, you reap what you sow. Okay? But going to the book of 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 1, it says, "For as much then as Christ have suffered for us in the flesh, arm yourselves likewise with the same mind, for he have suffered in the flesh, or he that have suffered in the flesh have ceased from sin." So Christ suffered in his flesh through tribulation, through persecution, through his passion, all the way to the cross. He suffered, and it says he have ceased from sin. Okay? That he no longer should live the rest of his life or the rest of his time in the flesh to the lust of men. So that's what it means when it says that he have ceased from sin. Not that Christ ever sinned. Christ never sinned, right? But through his suffering, through his crucifixion, through his death, he ceased from the body of sin. No longer does he live in the flesh. Okay? It says that he no longer shall live the rest of his time in the flesh to the lust of men, but to the will of God. So in like manner, as Christ was crucified on the cross, we also must crucify our flesh so that we no longer live in the flesh or live to fulfill the lust of the flesh. Okay, you can read that in Romans 6, showing the comparison between Christ's crucifixion and how we must use the crucifixion as an example of how we must live our lives after we symbolically die through baptism. Okay? Verse 3. "For the time past of our life may suffice us to have wrought the will of the Gentiles." I'm going to read this again. "For the time past of our life may suffice us to have wrought the will of the Gentiles." Okay? So yes, now we're in the faith. Now we have the light. Now we're able to identify right from wrong. Now, when we hear these stories, we can chastise the people and rebuke the people and reprove them according to the Bible and show them how wrong they are according to the Bible now that we have the light. Okay? However, there was a time in our life when we did not have the light, when we were operating after the manner of the Gentiles, when we too were guilty of, maybe not to the same extent, okay, maybe not to the same degree, and we're going to show you why, because again, the Bible speaks to that as well. Okay? However, to some degree, we may have been involved or were involved in some of the activities and the accusations that we hear coming out of the realm of Little Babylon, the entertainment industry. Check this out. So Peter is not excluding himself, even though he himself may have not been involved in some of these things, right? But he's including himself, right? So when we walked in lasciviousness, don't we hear what we're hearing about accusations about the Pied Piper, about the bad boy, and some of the other people that we've heard over the years? Are those not examples of lasciviousness? Okay? But the scriptures is telling us that it's not exclusive to them. They have gone to a different level with it, but there's a reason why they have gone to another level with it, which we're going to explain in a moment. Okay? However, we all have either witnessed or have been a part of lasciviousness, lust, excess of wine, drunkenness. You're hearing about people having addictions. Okay? Not only carnal, fleshly addictions to sex and things of that nature, but also drug addictions, alcohol addictions. Okay? All of that falls under excess of wine, drunkenness, addiction. You hear about all of that coming out of this realm called the entertainment industry, Little Babylon. Revelings. Revelings being strange parties, loud, boisterous, strange parties. Okay, revelings, banquetings, and abominable idolatries. Okay, you hear of all of these things taking place within this realm of Little Babylon. However, it is not exclusive to Little Babylon. We've all either witnessed within our communities, either in our households, or even within ourselves, some of the things that have been aforementioned. Okay? Someone says that, okay, is the sound okay? Let me make sure the sound is good. Okay? So, again, these things are not exclusive to that realm. Now, that realm magnifies it, it caters to it, but it's not exclusive to that realm. Okay? All right. Now, the question is, as I mentioned earlier, that they took it to another level. Okay? And the question is why? Well, more money, more access. Okay? More money, the more money you have, the more ability you have to exercise your lust on the next level. Okay? Whereas the everyday person who is dealing in lust and lasciviousness and banquetings and revelings and excess of wine, they can only do it to a certain degree. Why? Because their finances just won't allow them to take it to the extreme. Okay? But these people, again, they're in a place where through their money and influence, they get access to whatever they desire. Okay? So that's why there it's a little bit more magnified. As it says here in the book of 1 Timothy 6 and 9, but they that will be rich fall into temptation and a snare and into many foolish and hurtful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. I'm going to read this again. But they which be rich, right, as your bad boy, as your Pied Piper once was, and many others who have come out over the years, they had money, they had influence. They fall into temptation and a snare and into many foolish and hurtful lusts. So when you hear the stories coming out of the degree of what they may have been involved in or were accused of involving themselves in, you ask yourself, like, who would do that? Who would go to that extreme? Well, again, with money, money increases your access. And with that access, you can take whatever lust you have or whatever desire you have to the next level. Okay? Which drown men in destruction and perdition. For the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some have coveted after, they have erred from the faith. And that's the problem. Many of these people that you hear about, they grew up what? In a quote unquote Christian biblical background. But for their desire to be rich and famous, for their love of money, through covetousness or coveting after money, they have done what? They have erred from the faith. Okay? To the point you'll hear someone say that the Bible says to be meek and humble, but it don't say you have to be like that every day. Okay? Just totally philosophizing on the scriptures. Claiming on one hand to be biblically based and be a man of God or a man of faith. Okay? But on the other hand, twisting the scriptures to suit your desires. Okay? Someone said the screen is blurry. Okay? Don't look blurry to me, but maybe that's the case. Okay? So let me make an adjustment. In fact, let me ask, is the screen blurry? Okay, it's back to no. Okay, so it may be adjusting. It may adjust from time to time when you move to the screen. The focus may come in and out. Okay, Salakia for that. Okay, so yes, that's the reason why. Even though, again, these things happen within society at large, but it's magnified in that realm because of the people, their influence, and their power and their money. Okay. All right, moving on. All right, let's go to the book of Leviticus chapter 18. Okay, we're coming to a close. Leviticus 18. We're going to start at chapter number 1. Because now we need to give some insight of some of the activities that the Most High warned us from. Okay, going back to ancient times. Some of the same things you hear coming out of little Babylon, the industry, are some of the same exact things that the Most High warned our forefathers from in ancient times, to show you that these things are not new. Okay? Moving on, it says, "And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, I am the Lord your God. After the doings of the land of Egypt, wherein ye dwelt, ye shall not do. And after the doings of the land of Canaan, whither I bring you, shall ye not do, neither shall ye walk in their ordinances." Verse 4, "Ye shall do my judgments and keep mine ordinances to walk therein. I am the Lord your God." Now jumping down, verse number 6 says, "None of you shall approach to any that is near to kin of him, to uncover their nakedness. I am the Lord." So now these are some of the activities, okay? The debauchery and the deviance that you may hear taking place within the entertainment industry. Okay? And these are some of the things that you may hear rumors coming out, have been coming out for years since the inception of it. Okay, all the way till now. Okay? These things have been in existence. Okay? These things have been in existence. All right, so it didn't start with the most recent bad boy, as they call him. Okay? He's just one of many. All right? So to make it seem as if he's the face of, the same way years ago they said the Pied Piper or made him the face of. Even though there were others who were being accused of other things as well, some similar to what the Pied Piper was accused of. Same thing today. You have the bad boy, and there's things that he's being accused of that others are also being accused of, but he's being pushed to the forefront as the face of it all. Okay? Now, again, you reap what you sow. There's no getting around that. Okay? However, if we're going to be honest, if we're going to be fair, if we're going to play fair and be right, the only thing we're asking is that don't just make one person the face of this activity. If you're against it, when it's one person doing it, you have to be against it for everyone that does it. Okay? And those who are within know more than what they're letting on when it comes to others who are involved in similar activity. Some activity may even be worse. Okay? But it seems as if when things like this happen, everyone wants to put all of the burden on the one person to take the rap for what's taking place. When it's a whole industry full of insane, crazy people doing crazy things. And that's the only thing I'm saying. Again, it's not to excuse or to defend anyone. It's just saying, if you're going to blow the lid on everybody. Okay, this don't just go to the rapper, don't just go to the rap mogul, don't just go to the R&B singer, don't just go to the producer. Go to the people who are funding them. Go to the people who are over the labels. Go to the people who are over them. Okay? Don't just go to the faces. Don't go to the mascots. Go to the owners of the team. Okay? There's enough finger pointing and enough guilt to go around for everyone. Okay? It says here, verse 7, the nakedness of thy father or the nakedness of thy mother shalt thou not uncover. She is thy mother. Thou shalt not uncover her nakedness. So these were things going on within Egypt and Canaan. The nakedness of thy father's wife shalt thou not uncover. It is thy father's nakedness. The nakedness of thy sister, the daughter of thy father, the daughter of thy mother, whether she be born at home or born abroad, even their nakedness shalt thou not uncover. The nakedness of thy son's daughter or thy daughter's daughter, even their nakedness shalt thou not uncover, for theirs is thine own nakedness. The nakedness of thy father's wife's daughter, begotten of thy father, she is thy sister. Thou shalt not uncover her nakedness. Okay, and it goes on and on. Okay. Thou shalt not uncover the nakedness of thy daughter-in-law. She is thy son's wife. Thou shalt not uncover her nakedness. Okay? Thou shalt not uncover the nakedness of thy brother's wife. It is thy brother's nakedness. So these are all things we hear coming out of that realm of the industry, Little Babylon. 17, thou shalt not uncover the nakedness of a woman and her daughter, meaning dealing both with the mother as well as the daughter. Okay? Again, these are things you hear coming out from time to time within that industry. That's just the reality of what goes on. And it's not just one person doing it. It's not 3 people. It's not a handful of people. The whole industry is geared towards people who have these weird proclivities. Okay, moreover, thou shalt not lie carnally with thy neighbor's wife to defile thyself with her. Okay, how often is this celebrated within the industry? People sleeping with each other's wives and girlfriends, whatever the case may be. Okay, 21, and thou shalt not let any of thy seed pass to the fire to Moloch, neither shalt thou profane the name of thy God. How many accusations have been out there or legends have been out there of people within the industry giving over their children literally to Moloch? Okay? This is what goes on. Thou shalt not lie with mankind as with womankind. It is abomination. And we know that this is very common within that realm. Okay? Thou shalt not lie with mankind as with womankind. It is abomination. Very common within that realm. Like someone says, swapping spouses and all these other things that you hear about. Okay, rumblings you've been hearing and rumors you've been hearing and accusations you've been hearing. Okay? This didn't start with these recent things that we're hearing. These have been conversations and rumblings for the longest. Okay? But when it happens, when these things happen, they want you to focus, okay, with tunnel vision on one person, hone in on one person. Now, if you're not going to, it's okay if you're going to hone in on one person and then eventually blow the whole lid open. Okay, blow the whole cover. That's a little bit more respectable. But just to make it about one person, as if they're the face of it all, that's hypocritical. That's hypocrisy. Okay? Now let's get to the architects, because now the title of the lesson is Exposing the Architects of Sin. So let's get to the architects. Okay, let's go to the book of Maccabees, the first chapter. In fact, let's start in Daniel 7 and 6, because Daniel is very profound in exposing a lot about the current empires that we're under. Okay? I'm not going to put out names and say that this one is next, that one is next. For all we know, this can come out and it'll go away, and you won't hear about any of this stuff for another year, another 2 years before the next situation that they put in front of us comes out. That's just how it works. Okay, so I'm not going to say that this one is next, that one is next. They're going to come and get her. They're going to come and get him. Okay? Or you could be right. Who knows? But the way this tends to work, as we've seen it, it'll come out. They'll push it in front of us. They'll use it as an example for future reference for anyone else that they want to come and get their hands on and castigate. They'll use the same model over and over for anyone that they want to castigate. And I'm not going to say demonize, because obviously, all right, some of these things could be true, whatever the case may be. But again, it's not just true for this one person. It's true for the industry at large. Okay, this is what goes on. It's just the reality of what goes on in that realm. Okay, it's not right. It's evil. It's vile. But that's what goes on in this realm. And unless you're going to expose it all, okay, just to put it on one person is again, it's total hypocrisy. Okay. Okay. All right. Moving on. Daniel 7 and 6. To give you some insight into the architects. And this will be the final portion before we close out. All right. The architects. Again, we're exposing the architects of sin. Daniel 7 and 6. After this, I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. Now we know this is speaking about who? The Greek Empire. Verse 7 says, after this, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. It was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. This is speaking about the Roman Empire. Now jumping down to verse number 17. These great beasts, which are 4 kings, meaning 4 kingdoms, which shall arise out of the earth. Now, out of those 4 kingdoms, we identify 2. You got the Greek Empire and the Roman Empire. Okay? And for the sake of this lesson, we're going to refer to them as the architects. Okay? Jumping down to verse number 20, it says, and of the 10 horns, in fact, let me jump down to 23. Thus he said, the 4th beast shall be the 4th kingdom upon earth, which was diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and tread it down, and break it in pieces. And the 10 horns out of his kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall arise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. 25 says, and he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, speaking about the 4th beast, the 4th empire, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand a time and times and the dividing of time. Okay? So these are the architects. So let's see what the Bible says about the architects, right? Starting off with the Greeks, it says here in the book of 1 Maccabees 1 and 1, and it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Kittim, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead the first over Greece. And he made many wars and won many strongholds and slew the kings of the earth, and went through to the ends of the earth and took many spoils, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted and his heart was lifted up. So jumping down to verse Number 6, it says, in fact, verse 5, it says, and after these things he fell sick and perceived that he should die. Wherefore he called his servants, such as were honorable, and had been brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom among them, while he was yet alive. So Alexander reigned 12 years, and then he died. And his servants bare rule, every one in his place. Key point, verse 9. And after his death, they all put crowns on themselves. So did their sons after many years. Here's the key point. And evils were multiplied in the earth. Not righteousness. Didn't say righteousness was multiplied in the earth when the architects, the Greeks, came into power. It didn't say piety was multiplied in the earth when the Greeks came into power. It didn't say that chastity was multiplied in the earth when the Greeks came into power. The Bible says that evils were multiplied in the earth when the Greeks came into power. Okay? And again, for the sake of this lesson, we're referring to them as the architects. They would become the eventual architects of the realm that we're calling today Little Babylon, the industry. Okay? Verse 10 says, and there came out of them a wicked root, surnamed Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had been hostage at Rome. And he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. In those days went there out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. Okay? So, the same way today, or the same way, I would rather put it, the same way back then, you had some of our people who are willing to make a covenant with the evil architects, okay, with the debauchery of the architects, with the sin of the architects. You have the same exact thing operating today within the realm of Little Babylon. Okay? Full of entertainment. People willing to sell their souls and things of that nature for fame and riches. Okay? No different. So, when people decide, like they were back then, because we're going to show you that back then when our people began to make a covenant with the architects, the heathen, right? When we decided to make a covenant with them, not only did we make a covenant, we started partaking in their debauchery. Okay? We started dealing in the lasciviousness and the wickedness that they were dealing with. Okay? Same thing goes on today. When they make these covenants, they start to take on the lifestyles, right, of the people who just so happen to be their paymasters. Okay? They take on the lifestyles of the architects of their industry. Whatever those lifestyles may be, whatever that lasciviousness or those debaucherous acts may be, they tend to take those things on. Okay? Same thing was going on back then. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. So they were saying to themselves, these are the Israelites who joined unto the Greeks. They were saying that since we departed from them, since we became independent from them, we have had much sorrow. So they attributed their success to who? The Greeks. They attributed their success to who? The architects. Okay? So this device pleased them well. Then certain men, or certain of the people, were so forward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen, meaning they were given permission to operate within the lasciviousness and the wickedness and the debauchery of the heathen. Okay? So when you hear these stories of back in 1995, such and so and so did this. Back in 2003, such and so and so did that. Okay. And I saw him do it, or I witnessed this and I witnessed that. The question is, if all of these people knew about this activity taking place, including the paymasters, including the architects, why wasn't it wrong back then? Okay. Why wasn't there a media campaign back then to expose the wickedness of the individual that they say had this long trail of debauchery and sin and evil and wickedness going back to the 90s and the 2000s and things of that nature? Why didn't anyone expose it to this degree back then? And I'm not just speaking about the people who are I'm not talking about the people who are employees or maybe working for an individual. Obviously, there's a bit of a compromise in that regard. I'm talking about the paymasters, the architects. Okay? When you hear stories of doctors had to be flown out on a yacht to pack somebody up, that shows that, number one, okay, these doctors knew. Number two, there's doctors who can be called for instances of secrecy to come and patch things up. Okay? When someone is being hurt or harmed, there's doctors who are willing to come out and be flown out to ensure that everything is patched up, that the person is fixed up. Okay? And everything stays mum. No one hears about it. Okay? That tells me that there's something within the industry that caters to that type of activity and the ability for someone to get away with that activity. Okay? So you mean to tell me the architects and the paymasters had no knowledge of that? And if they did, why wasn't it wrong back then? Why wasn't there an expose back then? Well, as the Bible says, they were given license to do after the heathen. They were given permission to do after the heathen. Okay? They were given full authority to do whatever they desired to do, just as long as they were operating within the good graces of the heathen. Okay? They were given license, permission. But now all of a sudden, all these stories come out, and now all of a sudden it's the most heinous thing in the world. When it was a track record going back 20, 30 years of activity taking place. And I'm just using this as an example. It can be, it don't have to be necessarily, let's take it off the realm of entertainment. It can be anything, anyone. But there's a track record of this type of activity taking place, people seeing and witnessing, and then saying to themselves, well, or were present to witness it, but then later when the expose comes out, now everyone wants to come from the woodworks and give their testimony of what they saw. Okay? But not giving a testimony of how they corrected or tried to correct the situation. Okay? So that's the point I'm making. The reason why these things were allowed for so many years is because they were given license by the paymasters to indulge in anything they saw fit. Okay? 14, whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathen. Okay? Now, we know that according to Greek custom, the place of exercise, also known as the gymnasium, was a place where men and boys did exercise in sports and games and what? The nude. Okay? So now you start to see the element of child violation. Okay? You hear about these stories and you ask yourself, well, how is this so prevalent within Little Babylon, the industry? Okay? Well, the architects just so happen to be very fond of that type of activity. When you go into their history, they were always fond of that type of activity. Okay? building places where they can play games and play sports themselves and little boys in the, in the nude. Okay? That's not anything new. Okay? There's nothing new under the sun. Okay? You'll hear a story and you think, oh my God, this is so heinous. How could they well, the architects themselves indulge and enjoy this type of behavior. Okay? Which, if it's the case, let's blow the lid off on everyone. Let's do an expose on everybody. Because it seems like when now certain people come into question, okay, certain officials come into question, it seems like you start to see a cover up. You start to hear of certain islands where high, powerful people go to indulge in the type of activity we're reading in the book of Maccabees 1 and 14. Right? When you hear of these things, it's like slowly but surely they have to, you'll hear a few stories about it. You'll hear this and that, or they'll have a scapegoat or one person who has to take the fall, or one fall guy who has to take the blame for it all. And before they start to expose and begin to speak, all of a sudden they disappear or they pass away mysteriously. Okay? But it seems like when there's certain people, there seems to be a cover-up. Okay? When I say certain people, I'm not just talking about color. I'm talking about certain positions, certain revered positions within the earth. It seems to be a cover-up. Okay? Rapper, rap mogul, R&B singer, who cares? Let him be the fall guy. Let him be the face of all that's wrong within the industry. Okay? So it goes on to say, verse 15, and they made themselves uncircumcised and forsook the holy covenant and joined themselves to the heathen and were sold to do mischief. Okay? Let's go to 2 Maccabees. Just two more scriptures before we close out. Going to the book of 2 Maccabees, the 6th chapter and the 1st verse. Okay, again, dealing with the architects. These are the people who, the faces behind the faces, or the faces you probably will never see. You may hear the name here and there, or some of these names you may have never heard. Okay, but these are the architects. These are the paymasters who are over Little Babylon. Okay, now we're going to delve into, because now the Bible is exposing what they are into. Okay, there's nothing new under the sun. What their forefathers were into, they're into the same exact thing today. Okay, but you don't see a big expose. You don't see all of the tabloids and all of these people talking about the tea, and they got the lowdown on this and they got the tea on that. You don't see them going into the shadowy figures. Okay, the paymasters, the architects. Okay, but the Negro hustler, the little mogul who've been dancing and shuffling around for the past 30 years, they'll quickly throw him under the proverbial bus. Okay, not that to some degree doesn't deserve it, but come on, let's stop playing around and lying to ourselves and making ourselves believe that this is the end all, the be all when it comes to certain activity within this industry. Okay. So 2 Maccabees 6 and 1 says, not long after this, the king sent old men of Athens to compel the Jews to depart from the laws of their fathers and not to live after the laws of God. This is the architects. Okay, and their forefathers, who have always attempted to convince the Jews, the people of God, to depart from their laws, which tell them not to deal in lasciviousness, which tell them not to rob people, not to exploit people, not to violate people. Okay? This is what the laws of our forefathers command us. These are things that the laws of our fathers command us not to do. However, the architects have built a whole industry promoting those same exact things which our God commands us to abstain from. Okay? A whole movie industry promoting things which our God commands us to abstain from. A music industry promoting things that our God commands us to abstain from. And then those same said people will come back when you actually indulge in the lasciviousness that they promote to you 24/7 and come back and say, see, he's all that's wrong with the industry. Okay, let's move him out the way. He's all that's wrong with the industry. Okay, when it's the architects who have built a structure, a system which promotes what? Departing from the laws of God. Okay? And to pollute also the temple in Jerusalem and to call the temple of Jupiter Olympius, and that in garrison of Jupiter, the defender of strangers, as they did desire that dwelt in the place. Okay? That's 2 Maccabees 6:1. 1 Maccabees, the first chapter, was the last one we went into. All right, so let's read on. It says, For the temple was filled with riot and reveling by the Gentiles. Again, these are the fathers of the architects. Okay, the Greeks. For the temple was filled with riot and reveling by the Gentiles. What does it mean by riot and reveling? It's talking about strange parties. Okay, filled with all types of lust and lasciviousness. Okay? They want to talk about, for the past few years, it's been a running joke of the bad boy talking about partying with rappers and, come and party with me, so on and so forth. That's been a running joke. Okay? And he's become the face of the party. Come and party with me. But now in the Bible, we're reading how the architects party. Okay? We're reading about the people who taught him how to party. Okay? And now we're showing you exactly how they party. Speaking about the architects. Okay? They want to make him the face of the party. Okay? But they party, the way they party is on a whole nother level. And we're getting into it now in the scriptures. Okay? For the temple was filled with riot and reveling. This is in the temple of God. It says it was filled with riot and reveling by the Gentiles. Now let's see what they were doing in the temple. Who dallied with harlots. Let's get the definition of dallied. Let's see if we can pull this up very quickly. If not, we'll just move on. Okay. Who dallied with harlots. Okay. Okay, it's not giving us a definition here. Let's pull this up very quickly. I don't think it has the Strong's on here. Let me see if it gives us a definition on the Webster's. Okay. Let's see if we can get a definition on the Webster. Okay, to dally. Literally to delay, to linger, to wait, to trifle. To lose time in idleness and trifles. To amuse oneself with idle play. Again, to trifle, to lose time in idleness and trifles. Okay, trifling activities, right? To amuse oneself with idle play. Down here it says to toy. Okay, when it says they dallied with women. Okay, they amused themselves with women. They toyed with women. It says to toy and wanton as man and women, to interchange caresses, to fondle, to sport, to play. This is what they were doing in the temple of God with harlots. This is how they party. Okay, speaking about the party and why don't you party with me, so on and so forth. This is how the architects party. Okay, So who do you think he learned it from? They learned it from. I'm not even going to put it on one person. Who you think they learned it from? Okay, all of those who are in the industry, the Negro hustlers, the people who are put before our face and worship as gods, but really they're basically servants to their paymasters. It says, and had to do with women within the circuit of the holy places, and besides that brought in things that were not lawful. So they were dealing with all types of debauchery, partying in God's temple. The altar was also filled with profane things which the law forbiddeth. Neither was it lawful for a man to keep Sabbath days or ancient fasts or to profess himself at all to be a Jew. So along with these parties, along with the architects and their debauchery, they made it illegal for our forefathers to profess themselves to be Jews. Okay? Verse 7 says, and in the day of the king's birth, every month, they were brought by bitter constraint to eat of the sacrifices when the fast of Bacchus was kept. Okay, so they dealt with Bacchus rituals. Okay, wine. Okay, lasciviousness, debauchery. The Jews were compelled to go in procession to Bacchus carrying ivory. We're going to jump down to the key point. I'm going to jump down to some of the key points. Verse number 18 says, Eleazar, one of the principal scribes, an aged man and of a well-favored countenance, was constrained to open his mouth and to eat swine's flesh. So now, again, this is within their parties. Okay? Now they're bringing in Jews for their entertainment. Okay? But he choosing rather to die gloriously than to live strained with such an abomination, spit it forth, and came of his own accord to the torment. So this is the honor that our people held back then. They were willing to abstain from abominable acts, even if it meant losing their life, even if it meant torture and death. But keep in mind that all of this is taking place within a party, within a feast, as entertainment for the architects. As I mentioned earlier, they deal with a different level of entertainment. You're going to find out not only is it just dallying with women and, little girls, little boys, and all of those various things you may hear of. There's also death and torture that takes place in some of these high-level parties as a form of entertainment. Okay? These things take place. And again, they're going to look at the Negro hustler and the bad boy and look at him and say, okay, this is what he's doing and that's what he's doing. As vile as it is, it's not the end all to be all. It's low level compared to the level of stuff that goes on within this realm. Okay? Reading on, it says here, it says here, verse number 21. In fact, let me get straight to the point. So it says here that they led him, this is verse 29 in 2 Maccabees 6, that they led him, changing the goodwill, they bear him a little before into hatred. Now here's something that's very key. I want to go back to this very quickly. It says here in verse 20, as it behooved them to come to resolute to stand out against such things that are not lawful for love of life to be tasted. But they had the wicked charge of the wicked feast, for the old acquaintance they had with the man, taking him aside, besought him to bring flesh of his own provision, such as was lawful for him to use, and make as if he did eat of the flesh taken from the sacrifice commanded by the king. Meaning what? initially Eleazar stated that he's not going to partake in any abominable flesh in respect to the laws of his fathers, and that he's willing to die for what he believes in. So they told him, listen, you don't have to eat pork. You don't have to eat lobster. You don't have to eat shrimp. You don't have to eat anything abominable. What we'll do is allow you to go and choose any meat of your choosing. Okay? You can choose cattle. You can choose beef. You can choose lamb. You can choose whatever is suitable for you. But when you eat it, tell your people that you're eating pork. Tell your people that you're eating swine's flesh, so that now they can see you being an influential person who is well respected among your people, and they will look at you and say, well, Eleazar ate swine, which means it's now good for us to eat swine. Okay? Showing what? That the architects are willing to take people who are influential among us and use them to promote things that they know are not right nor lawful for us to partake in. Okay? They'll take someone who is influential, who maybe even themselves may not indulge in certain activity. You have rappers who don't smoke or drink, but they'll sell you a record telling you that they get high all the time. Okay? They don't drink, but they'll sell you vodka. They don't drink, but they'll make songs talking about they're in a club with bottles of bub and so on and so forth. Okay? So they don't indulge in these things, but with their influence, they'll use their influence to sell you things that they themselves know is detrimental and wrong. Not to say that having alcohol is wrong or anything of that nature, but if you're an artist who believes within yourself that drinking alcohol is detrimental to your health and that you're health conscious, why take it and sell it to your people? Okay? So they were trying to do the same thing with Eleazar, but Eleazar was honorable. Eleazar was a strong man who stood for what he believed in and would not as much as go and get a lawful beast to consume and act as if it's a clean beast before his people so that now his people can be led astray. Okay? So again, he was willing to die for what he believed in. But again, the architects, again, they'll take someone who is influential among you, someone who you like their music, okay, you respect their gift, and he will use them to sell you things that they themselves, meaning the artists, don't even indulge in themselves. Okay? That in doing so, this is verse 22. In fact, we'll jump to the point and then go to the next chapter. Verse 30, it says, but when he was ready to die with stripes, he groaned and said, it is manifest unto the Lord that have the holy knowledge that whereas I might have been delivered from death, I now endure sore pains in body by being beaten, but in soul am well content to suffer these things because I fear him. And thus this man died, leaving his death for an example of noble courage and a memorial of virtue, not only unto young men, but unto all his nation. So he used his influence as a righteous example to the young men of his nation, Okay? So here's the example of what to do when you have power and influence. All right? But the point I'm making is that this was their entertainment, trying to force us to break the laws of God and torturing us when we refuse to do so. This was their entertainment. Speaking of the architects. So don't let them just tell you and push out there about some rapper and the weird parties he likes to be involved in and the weird revelings that he likes to, set up and indulge in for himself. Okay? Because they're telling you half the story. Okay? I'm just going to read a little bit of this, jumping over to 2 Maccabees chapter 7, verse 1. Okay? And it came to pass that 7 brethren with their mother were taken and compelled by the king against the law to taste swine's flesh, and were tormented with scourges and whips. Again, this is all taking place within a feast, within a party. People being brought in to be tortured for entertainment. Okay? But one of them that spake first said, what wouldest thou ask or learn of us? We are ready to die rather than to transgress the laws of our fathers. Then the king, being enraged, commanded pans and cauldrons to be made hot, which forthwith, being heated, he commanded to cut out the tongue of him that spake first. This is all being done in entertainment. Okay? And cut off the utmost parts of his body. So he cut off the rest of his brethren and his mother looking on. So his mother is looking at, a mother is looking at all of her sons being tortured before her eyes. Okay? And all of this is being done for what? For entertainment. Okay? So jumping down, you can read the story in your own time. But when you jump down, it says here, this is how we know this was for entertainment. I started 41 where it says, last of all, after the sons, the mother died. So they killed not only the sons, but also the mother. Now, how do we know that this was for entertainment? 42. Let this be enough to have spoken concerning the idolatrous feast. Let this now be enough, or let this be enough now to have spoken concerning the idolatrous feast and the extreme tortures. Okay? So this is what goes on in their parties. Right? They're telling you about the parties of some rapper or some singer or some low-level entertainer. They'll tell you about their parties, but the question is, what's going on within the parties of the architects of the industry? What's going on within their parties? Okay? Well, I believe that in the book of Maccabees, the Bible is giving us insight as to the strange rites and revelings that take place within their parties. Okay? Last but not least, we got Matthew 14, showing you that John the Baptist, a prophet of God, was what? Was tortured and killed in a party for entertainment. Okay, this is the time of the Romans. We went through the Greeks. Now we're in the time of the Romans. Okay. St. Matthew 14, verse 1. At that time, Herod the Tetrarch heard of the fame of Yeshua and said unto his servants, this is John the Baptist. He is risen from the dead, and therefore mighty works do show forth themselves in him. For Herod had laid hold on John and bound him and put him in prison for Herodias' sake, his brother Philip's wife. So Herod was dealing with his brother's wife, and John the Baptist would come out and prophesy against him because of it. Verse 4 says, for John said unto him, it is lawful for thee to have her. So he was telling Herod, and this is not Herod the Great, who tried to kill Christ at birth. This is one of his descendants. So he was telling him that it was wrong, or it was not lawful for this Herod to have his brother Philip's wife. So because of that, John the Baptist was eventually imprisoned. And when he would have put him to death, he feared the multitude because they counted him as a prophet. So initially, Herod the Tetrarch did not want to kill John the Baptist in fear of an uprising. Okay? But when Herod's birthday was kept, so again, here we are at another party among the elite, among the architects of the industry, as we'll call them, okay? But when Herod's birthday was kept, the daughter of Herodias danced before them and pleased Herod. Whereupon he promised with an oath to give her whatsoever she would ask. So listen to her request. Verse 8. And she, being before instructed of her mother, said, Give me here John Baptist's head in a charger. In other words, give me John the Baptist's head on a platter. For what? For her entertainment. Okay? This is how the elites party. This is how they enjoy themselves. Okay? This is how they engage in entertainment. The Bible is exposing it all. Okay? So again, they'll tell us about what's going on at the party for a rapper or a singer, so on and so forth, and some of the gross things that go on there without exposing what's really going on at their parties. Okay? So it says, and he sent, this is verse 10, and he sent and beheaded John in prison. And his head was brought in a charger and given to the damsel, and she brought it to her mother. And his disciples came and took up the body and buried it and went and told Yeshua. Okay? So this is what they do for entertainment. Okay, last but not least, Revelation 18. We're going to get straight to the point. Okay, this deals with the judgment of Babylon. We're not going to deal with the judgment. We know what the judgment is of not only little Babylon, which is the entertainment industry, but also Babylon the Great. Babylon as a whole will be judged. Let's see what the Bible says about what can be found in Babylon. Revelations 18 and 11. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore. The merchandise of gold and silver and precious stones and of pearls and of fine linen and purple and silk and scarlet and all thyine wood and all manner of vessels and ivory and all manner of vessels of most precious wood and of precious brass and of brass and iron and marble and cinnamon and odors and ointments and frankincense and wine. Okay, so now the Bible mentions wine. But there's other merchandise that can be found within Babylon, which is of the illegal variety, or at least we've been told that these things are illegal drugs, whatever the case may be. However, within the realm of little Babylon, these things are easily and readily available. Okay? For whosoever desires or may choose to indulge in those things. Okay? This is the stuff, everything you can think of is available. Again, little Babylon is a microcosm of Babylon the Great. So everything that's available within Babylon the Great is magnified within this little Babylon. Everything they want, everything they desire, they have at the snap of a finger. So it says, in wine and fine flour and wheat and beast and sheep and horses and chariots and slaves and the souls of men. So they'll tell you about trafficking and people being trafficked for pleasure and things of that nature. Well, you have a whole nation of people sitting within Babylon the Great who are the victims of trafficking. Okay? That's a whole nother conversation for another day. Okay? That's a whole nother conversation for another day. All right? Within this industry, you hear the stories or you hear rumblings about people being moved illegally from place to place for the use and the pleasure of who you may call the elites or the architects. Okay? This is common behavior that takes place within this realm. But they'll make you think that it's just the rapper, the singer, the little sports figure, what have you. When it's the whole industry behind this who are involved in this type of behavior. Okay? It says, in the fruits that thy soul, verse 14, and the fruits that thy soul lusted after are departed from thee, and all things which were dainty and goodly are departed from thee, and thou shalt find them no more at all, which is the ultimate judgment of Babylon the Great. It says here in verse number 17, for in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught, and every shipmaster and company and ships and sailors and as many as trade by sea, stood afar off and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, what city is like unto this great city? And they cast dust on their heads and cried, weeping and wailing, at last, that great city wherein were made rich all that had ships in the sea by reason of her costliness, for in 1 hour is she made desolate. And that's the ultimate judgment of Babylon. That's what's coming to Babylon. Not only little Babylon, the little industry that's crumbling before our eyes, but Babylon the Great in larger scale. Okay? So with that, I want to say bless you all and shalom. That concludes today's lesson. Again, we have a new Hebrew and Bible Academy upcoming January 7th. Some of the lessons we're going to be covering in the upcoming academy include UFOs in the Bible, the Jewish relationship with the tribe of Judah, roundtable discussion on the purpose of man and woman, breakdown on the 24 elders, the prophecies of Daniel and the secrets of time. And last but not least, walking with the commandments in Christ. All right. So if you're interested in the Hebrew and Bible Academy, go to historytimes.org and all the information you need will be there present on that website. Okay. With that, I want to say bless you all and shalom. Enjoy the rest of your Sabbath. For many of you, the Sabbath is already concluding, but again, enjoy the rest of your Sabbath. And next week, Elder Rawchaa, if it be the Most High's will, we'll be back. Okay. Bless you all and shalom.